じゃあ、OK、let's start the Regional Scrum Gathering Tokyo Keynote Session、Day 1、Johanna Rothman さん、よろしくお願いします。
Are you ready for me to share my screen? Okay, so thank you all. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm going to talk about program management, how you scale collaboration across the organization. Let me tell you a story of my very first experience as a software program manager. I had worked on Symbolic's Lisp machines for several years, and we decided to move from a special purpose large mini computer to a Lisp on a chip. That's this the Lisp on a chip over here. This is a picture of what the board was. We put the board into a Macintosh computer. So yes, this is back in 1988, when I suspect many of you were not even born yet. So this is old experience. However, it's quite relevant because we did not use a waterfall approach to making this program work. We used something called stage delivery, which is a way where you work on feature sets and you finish a feature set and then go to the next feature set. Back in 1988, I was a software program manager for approximately 45 or 50 teams. I no longer remember how many. And we also had 3 or 4 hardware teams and 1 mechanical engineering team. So we had a lot of people working on this program, right? All for this product. And we had the reason we had all these software people was because we had to take the operating system and make not just a port of it, but change it so it would work on a board. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. My experiences in that program and how they led to my work in program management now. Instead of trying to plan the entire program at once, I asked all the teams, what do you think you can deliver into the code base in the next month? We had monthly deliverables. Yes, this is back in 1988. We also used continuous integration inside the company. So every morning we all loaded patches because it was Lisp. So we could update our running version of the software every single day from our workstations. In addition, we had a bunch of teams who had to somehow collaborate together so they could actually deliver the product. So I asked them to tell me how they were going to do it. Because I'm not sure if you have ever met any very smart people who were so sure they could solve all the problems themselves. I'm sure you have met people like that. They don't really like it when you tell them what to do. But if you say to them, tell me what you're going to deliver, they are happy to collaborate among themselves and deliver what we need to deliver. So that's what I did. Every month, they would say to me, I think I'm going to do, well, someone from the team would come to me and say, I think we will deliver this, this, and that. Great. We put it up on yellow stickies on a whiteboard. And when they either finish that or realized they could not finish that, we updated the whiteboard, right? We updated the stickies on the whiteboard. So we had a form of rolling wave planning where we always had roughly a month of plan, and then we changed it as we needed to. I did not ask people for commitment. I asked them to tell me what they thought they could deliver and to change the whiteboard when we could not. And I asked them to deliver something every single day. So we started this large program in January, something like January 3rd or 4th in 1988. And we finished it in time to show a demo in August 22nd of 1988. So that was my first experience as a large program manager. Now, what worked in this particular program? We had a very clear program vision. We needed to have a demo of the product by August 22nd. We could not wait until August 23rd. We needed it by August 22nd. So we had very clear deliverables. Every team told me what they were going to deliver. We had only feature teams, not component teams. Feature teams work through the architecture in slices. So every feature team could deliver their features every single day. Now, what happened with the larger features? They delivered small chunks that would build up to the larger feature. And yes, we used feature flags at that time. We had extensive unit tests and system tests as support so that everybody could actually succeed with their deliverables. And we respected and trusted each other across the organization. I did not say to people, I know best, you must do what I ask. They would have all laughed at me. However, I did say to them, we need to respect each other and we need to trust each other. And if you need something from another person or another team, you ask for it. You don't have to ask me to make sure that that works, but you need to ask the other team, right? So we did not have a lot of hierarchy where information has to go up the hierarchy and then down, and then the information comes back up and over. We didn't have much of that at all, but we did have a lot of trust and respect. So when I talk about program management, I mean how we organize and coordinate several projects' results into one deliverable. So the MacGyver was that one deliverable. We had all of the software, right? The operating system, the networking. This is back when we had to roll our own networking. Yeah, the languages, all this, everything that worked on the list machine had to work on the MacGyver. And that deliverable has substantial value to the organization. So you'll notice this is a product focus, not a project focus, right? We're up at the level of a product to say, what do we need to do so this product can be successful? Now, I'm going to talk about these examples of Tim and Joe and Henry, who have relatively large or small projects, right? It's maybe 6 or 7 people on a team, and they are part of this program. Sally also has a small program. She has 6 feature set teams. So notice all of this work is so focused on the product you want to deliver to the customers. Now, there might be other things from people across the organization. Maybe sales has to create a different sales generation, right? Or a different way of selling and delivering to the customers. You might have to change the pricing. There's all kinds of stuff you might have to change. But the whole idea is that if you have several projects all in service of this product you want to deliver to customers. Now, let me just say, programs are much, much more risky than projects. That's because they don't scale, right? You might have risks in one given project. You might even have risks, if I go back to Sally's program, right? There are, in effect, 6 little projects in her program. Each one of those has its own risks, but programs the risks do not scale at all, right? So the duration, just imagine if you had one particular story that you needed to deliver and you run into trouble with it and you keep working on it and you keep working on it and keep working on it, that could get duplicated across the entire program. So that's why duration of the entire program is a very big deal. Now, the number of teams Just the fact that you have more than one team means you have more risks. How will people integrate their work? How will they deliver their work? How can we know that everything is going according to plan? Well, we can never know that things are going according to plan. We can just keep working the plan and keep replanning to make sure that we actually do succeed. Now, a program has many, many more features than a project, right? You might even be able to talk about a project in terms of we will deliver these 6 or 7 major solutions inside of this project for this product. But our program tends to have many, many more features. And if you have integrations, as we did with mechanical and hardware, never mind other vendors, that creates its own risk. So before you start thinking about scaling, think a whole lot more about the risks that you might have in your particular program. So I say the scaling process leads to bloat, and scaling collaboration leads to a great product. Now, let's make sure we all agree on what an Agile team is. An Agile team has ideas coming into a responsible person in Scrum. That person is a product owner, which is a great name. The product owner creates a ranked backlog, and the cross-functional team, who hopefully implements slices through the architecture, starts to work on that product. Now, I have shippable product on a regular basis. In a program, you might not be able to actually ship all these little increments. You might only be able to release them internally in the organization. However, the idea of having something shippable every single day, totally reasonable for a program. At some point, the teams do a demo and a retrospective, and they come back and get more of a ranked backlog. So I don't actually care if teams work in iterations, as in Scrum, or if they work in Flow, or with just managing their WIP, their work in progress, or if they use a combination. I don't care. As long as the teams have enough autonomy to do what they need to actually create shippable product on a regular basis. So when I think about scaling agility from one to many teams, I think about how do we create an environment where the teams have autonomy and they can manage themselves? How do we create collaboration? Because the teams are going to have to collaborate across the program, right? You will get partway through the first iteration or the first month or even the third or fourth month, and one team is going to say, oh, I need something from that team over there. I need help, or I need them to finish their features. I need something from that team over there. So the teams have to collaborate across the program. In addition, the teams must be able to explore, because we will not have the one right architecture from the beginning. We won't have the right tests from the beginning. We won't even have the right features from the beginning. We must experiment and learn so we can deliver. Now, I happen to use Cynefin for thinking about our knowns and our unknowns. So everything, if you're not familiar with Cynefin, everything on the right-hand side, we understand what we do and don't know, right? We might have challenges, but we know what those unknowns are. We can use good practice on those issues. However, the more we have unknowns, the more we need to really think about how do we probe, how do we discover information, how do we then sense that information and respond to that information. That's all about managing our risks. And the way I like to do that is with very small deliverables, where we might deliver something, at least one thing every single day from every team, that we integrate all those deliverables, and we plan to experiment and explore everywhere. right? So I have yet to see a program where we could use good practice. Instead, we have to use emergent practice. We have to think about what we're doing and do a little experimentation and then react to that experiment as we proceed. So the way I like to organize the teams is I like to say, you decide on your Agile approach. My one ask is that my one request is that you deliver at least as often as every day. I happen to like hourly delivery even more, and I'm happy if we deliver internally, not necessarily externally. Delivery outside the organization is a business decision. You might, especially if you have hardware, such as a cell phone, right? You cannot actually deliver pieces of a cell phone outside the organization. However, you can try all of the software and the hardware inside the organization as you go. That's the purpose of internal delivery and frequent demos. In every program I have run or consulted with, we have had to evolve the architecture. We thought we had an architecture, we thought it was going to work, and then we get partway through and we say, nope, it's not going to. So if we plan for evolutionary architecture, we are much more likely to succeed. And we must plan to replan. I'm going to talk about roadmaps and backlogs in a few minutes. But when we plan to replan, right, we only plan for a little bit of time, and then we adjust the plan as we proceed. We are much more likely to succeed. And that's part of how the teams organize themselves. They get to plan to replan their own work. So we need to see frequent progress. The teams need pervasive communication, and that means the teams need problem-solving autonomy. So if you think about problem-solving autonomy, the teams can solve the problems where they see them, where they find them, and with whomever else they need to solve the problems. And what does that mean? We need free-flowing information around the program, right? We must have information that just flows. So this is a picture of a hierarchy where there's one person in charge. The program manager is not that person, right? Neither is a scrum master, neither is a chief anything or any other named leader. Instead, we want free-flowing information around the program. So let me ask you to consider this question. What's the most effective way to move information in your organization? Think about that for just a second. And I will tell you that at least in the US and in the European countries I have worked in, it's the rumor mill. I believe it's also those background networks that when I talked with the interpreters before this, they say, yes, we have informal networks also. So if you think about the rumor mill, that's where people over here might talk to people over there and maybe talk to people over here. There's a word for that, and it's called small world networks. So small world networks are more or less connected Agile teams. So if you look at this particular team over here, there's 6 people on the team. They have 2 connections into this particular team and 2 connections into this particular team, and that's it. These are the people who tend to want to be more off by themselves. And then you have people over here who are connected to all kinds of other people, right? This 6-person team is connected to this team and this team and all these people, right? So are these people. So this particular team has many highly connected people, and these people are highly connected with each other. So some of you are highly connected, some of you are less so, and that does not matter as long as you have people on the team who are connected across the organization. The more you can have your program take advantage of these small world networks, these informal communications, the less you will need a hierarchy. And when we use small world networks, we can say that feature teams will take the responsibility for making sure that their features work, not so much just their features, but that their features work in the context of the entire program. So small world networks provide autonomy and collaboration. And you might be wondering, how can I use a small world network if my Scrum Master is supposed to bring my information up to another team, especially a program team? Well, that's where the people on the team take responsibility for making sure other people know what's going on in the program. And one way to do that is with communities of practice. So if you think about a community of practice, that's where the teams are all cross-functional, but we might have a platform team or a database team or an architecture team in the communities of practice, a testing team, a testing community of practice. What do people do? They learn from each other and they create and use those small world networks. So back on the MacGyver program, we had this interesting problem with garbage collection and testing, right? As soon as the testers instrumented the code to understand what happened with garbage collection, it all worked. And as soon as the testers removed their instrumentation, garbage collection got stuck. Now, that's a Lisp specific issue, but you can imagine any kind of test instrumentation changing the outcome of the actual feature itself. So the architects and the testers had to talk with each other to make sure that this all worked as we proceeded. And they did, because they had communities of practice. So if you think about communities of practice, in addition to your small world networks, or as a way to create those small world networks, now you have people with connections across the organization. That's the beauty of the small world network. So let me move to roadmaps and backlogs, because I already said that you need to replan often, especially with a program, because you have way too many risks. So let me talk a little bit about how I see a roadmap. A roadmap is a wish list. We want to solve these problems for these customers, and here's when we think we're going to do it, right? That works. A backlog is actually what teams will do over the very short term. And if you rank everything by value, you might realize that sometimes learning about risk is more valuable than anything you might release to a customer, right? So the value is in the learning, not in the customer delivery, but in the delivery internally inside the organization. So I see this kind of a roadmap all the time. Notice it has 6 quarters. Everything is lined up on a quarter. We have feature sets and themes that line up on a quarter. We have month-long internal releases. Yeah, everything is very lined up. It's very regimented. And wouldn't it be nice if you could actually do this? I have never seen this kind of a roadmap actually deliver according to this quarter by quarter delivery. Instead, I see a reality where the feature sets have more changes, and they don't always stick with a quarter. And the reason why is because the arrival rate of changes and new features is totally unpredictable. So in Q1, this particular feature set we thought was going to be on a quarter boundary, but it got bigger. Now, should we have stopped at the quarter boundary? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends on what we need to do for this team before. Do we need to finish this feature set before they go on to this one or this one? I don't know. It depends on what's most valuable. So the feature sets have different arrival rates for changes and new features. We realized late after we started to plan that some features are much more valuable than other features. So I'm going to show you an example of that in the product backlog burn-up chart. But when we try and push everything to a quarter boundary, we have a whole lot of pressure on teams to do more, right? Do more inside of this quarter time box. I'm not sure that that's useful. And we have to change what's in that 1 quarter time box. So instead of thinking about a quarter, I want you to start thinking about a month at a time. So I really like continual planning with either a 1 month rolling wave or a lean roadmap. So a rolling wave roadmap based on time, right, which is what we often see for roadmaps, is where you say, we think we can plan for 4 weeks at a time, right? You might, this is for the entire program. I hope that you can plan for 1 month at a time for the entire program. You might not be able to, especially at the beginning. You might have many, many more experiments. So inside, the way this works for a rolling plan is you say, here are the problems I want to solve, right? That's what these white boxes are. And then here are the stories that will help us solve those problems. So we know we have weeks 1 and 2, and we might have more than all these yellow stickies here, but that's the MVP for the release, the minimum viable product, and we do a demo. So if we think we have a 1 month Agile roadmap, then we probably have planned for the 3rd week. We might not have planned fully in terms of the stories for the 4th week, but as we finish that 1st week, we will plan the 4th week, and we might even have suppositions, options for that week 5 in the next rolling wave. So we always have 4 weeks of a wave where we know what we think we have to do, and then as we finish 1 week, we add another week. As we finish the 2nd week, we add another week. So we always have a plan for 4 weeks. Now, this is what we tend to do in most of our programs. I have been experimenting with a scope-based roadmap. In fact, we use a scope-based roadmap in the McIvory, because when I asked the teams, what will you deliver? We knew we had an MVP. And then if they said to me, I think we can deliver more, that was my big black line over here, where I said, okay, put those stories, put those deliverables underneath the big black line. And if those are the most important things to do once you have finished your MVP, then go do them. But if they are no longer as important, you have the option to either move to the next months of necessary work, or you change what's in here. So the interesting thing about continual planning, especially if you use a scope-based roadmap, you have many, many more options to replan. You always have the option to replan in a rolling wave roadmap. Totally, right? But you might have even more options because you tend to plan less. Now, if you fill up this month with everything you think you need and you don't have a big black line, yeah, you have exactly the same problem as a time-based roadmap. So my recommendation when you think about planning is that you embrace change. The more often you release, the more successful the product will be. And this means the more often you release internally. The more you release internally, the more everybody can see and offer you fast feedback about the program, right? Because I said the program is all about the product focus. So how do you make sure you have a product focus? You release often internally, you get fast feedback, hopefully with demos also, but you get fast feedback from your peers, from the other teams. That means you need to inspect and adapt as you go. The value of a retrospective on both your product and your process, it's hard to overstate that value, especially in a program. I suspect all of you know about retrospectives for a project, but just imagine you have 50 teams. They all do a retrospective every week, every 2 weeks, and maybe you even do a program-based retrospective every couple of weeks, or at least once a month. If you're going to use a time-based roadmap, right, you need to do a retrospective at the end of every 4 weeks. Well, the duration of your rolling wave. And if you do a retrospective as soon as you hit your MVP here, you are much more likely to succeed. Because you embrace change, you have then a value-based approach to product development, right? So I said before at the very beginning, a program has a product focus, and the more you embrace the ability to change, the more you can say, are we doing the most valuable thing now? Are we where we want to be now for this program? Which is why I think lean is essential. So let me talk to you a little bit about Joe and Tim and Henry. So back when I showed you the picture of the initial concurrent project program, right? Sally had a little program all of her own with 6 feature sets. And Tim and Joe and Henry had smaller projects. However, Tim and Joe and Henry need a joint Kanban board for their continuous integration. This particular Kanban board has WIP limits for what's ready, what they, excuse me, what's in develop and unit test, and then what's system test on the local branch. I am not fond of local branches. However, that's what Joe and Tim and Henry did. And the reason why they did is because they were component teams. So I will talk to you about component teams in a minute. So with this particular Kanban board, they were able to figure out how can we make sure everything is going to work so that when we integrate it, right, that it gets done. Now, you might say, this is a lot of work waiting for integration. And that's because there was a different integration team. Should Joe and Tim and Henry been a part of a program themselves? Yeah, maybe. But they didn't. They weren't. So this is why it almost doesn't matter how you organize, as long as you can visualize all of the work. So if you can see the flow of work all over the program, or at least the organization's program, and then you can manage the WIP, the work in progress. This particular board manages the WIP with WIP limits, except for waiting for integration, which is an interesting problem. Then you can create knowledge across the program, and you can see the whole. So while I would like it if Joe and Tim and Henry had been a program, they didn't ask me, and they weren't. So, but they figured out a way to make this work for them. They had this board for their continuous integration. So when I talk about continuous integration and testing, I'm hoping that all of the teams create small slices through the architecture, right? This red, green, and blue slices are all small stories. So if you can create a program environment where people can collaborate, the tests and the continuous integration enhance that collaboration. With enough tests and enough continuous integration, it's safe to explore across the product. And so autonomous teams can deliver these small slices, these small features often. But what if you don't have autonomous teams? What if you have component teams? Now, this is where my drawing skills are not as good as I would like them to be. Let's just say that. So I would like you to look at the light blue, the blue-green colors here in the GUI. That's the UI layer, right? This is a component team. The dark blue is in the app layer. That's the app layer team. The green is the middleware layer. That's the middleware team. And the red is the platform team, right? The platform teams. So if you work in a component team, and let's say you're in the platform team, then if you check in every single day, at least once, that allows the middleware teams to check in every day, at least once. That allows the app layer teams to check in every day, at least once, right? And then the UI layer teams can check in every day, at least once. The longer it takes for any of these teams to check in, the longer it's going to take for you to be able to see the product. That's a problem in a program. Because remember I said these nice little slices, you can see, right, that's, and I said that Joe, Tim, and Henry needed a joint Kanban because maybe they should have been programmed, but they were component teams. This is what happens. The longer it takes for any of these teams to check in, the longer it takes for you to actually see finished product, right? I'm only talking about internal finished product, right? Not even external finished product. So that means that agility changes how program managers manage. Back when I was a program manager, the managers actually said, well, we can commit to what the teams need to do. I managed not to laugh out loud, but the teams committed to me. Remember, I said, I asked the teams what they could do, and they told me what they could do. They put those stickies up on the whiteboard. The teams manage how they build features. The teams evolve the architecture. And that means that program management can remove obstacles and explain program status. So the more you think about this product, the product that you want to deliver to the customers, and the more you think about what kind of environment do we need to create a product that we will make our customers happy with, that's why agility really works. But it changes traditional program management. So let me talk about the core program team, and I'll talk about the software program team in a little bit. The core program team manages the organizational risks. So let me talk to you about some of these people. The core program manager talks to the program product owner, maybe the software program manager or software program managers. If you have hardware, the hardware program manager, maybe investor relations and corporate communications. So the program manager on the McIvory, right? I was just the software program manager, but the core team program manager for the McIvory had to do a lot of discussion with investor relations. We had already told people we were working on this product. What did it mean for our existing product line? What did it mean for our stock price? That person was part of the core program team. Do we need HR as part of the core program team? If you're changing job descriptions, if you're changing how people work, you might need HR. Do you need finance? I had to buddy with finance and the software program team because at that time we needed to understand when to capitalize the software, right? You might have different finance issues at the core team level. I suspect everybody needs marketing and legal and maybe even deployment. So the more you have a deployment team, the more you have component teams, the more the core program team needs to manage the risks of deployment, right? All of this means that the core program team has only one objective, and that is, how do we help the technical people create a great product? That's their one objective. And they do that by deciding what will create better product business value. Do they need to change the sales price? Do they need to change how they deploy? Do they need to change how they distribute and sell the product? Do we need to change the marketing messages, right? This is the core program team. So business value is all about the market for the product, right? It's a very product focused approach. Now, I'm not sure how many of you would ever be on a core program team. As the software program manager, I was a delegate to this core program team. However, I suspect many of you might end up on a software program team. So the entire team is going to be represented by one person, right? So you would not actually have an entire program team with Joe's feature team and Tim's feature team and Henry's feature team and Sally's project, which is a small program. Instead, you would have Joe, Tim, and Henry and Sal. In addition, you might have deployment here, especially if you realize that you need an agile approach to your program and you need to figure out how to move from centralized deployment to dispersed deployment, right? If everybody can deploy at least internally, then it's a business decision to decide when to deploy to the customers. So, and you'll notice that there's a little triad between the software program manager, the program architect, and the program product owner. This is all about risk management. The software, I never told the program architect what to do. I cannot imagine doing that, nor did I tell the product owner what to do. However, the three of us had many conversations about the implications of choosing this architecture on the problems we wanted to solve for the product. So we talked a lot at the beginning of the program what the obstacles were for a great product. Now there's communities of practice, which are sort of tangential to the program team. The piece that the software program manager would do is make sure that the communities of practice exist. And that's all of this discussion and information gathering and dissemination is all about removing obstacles for the technical team, right? The technical teams can remove their own obstacles for the code, for how the code integrates across the organization, for the problems with other features over here and products over there. However, if there are widespread obstacles, that's what the program manager resolves. So when one of the things I resolved was at one point the finance guy wanted to ask every single team about capitalizing the software, right? That's craziness. So I said, no, come to me. And that's why I had the product backlog burnout chart. So you'll see that in a couple of minutes. So the software program team can really focus the teams on the business value of the architecture, the code, the testing, everything that goes into creating a great product. So as long as you think about the program team, keeping that focus of on the business value of the technical work, right? The core program team is about the product business value, and the software program team is about the business value of the product itself, how the technology creates that product. I think of that as the technical nurturing of the product. I hope that makes sense. So you might be saying, okay, how do we see program level progress, especially if everybody is not using the same Agile approach? I already said, I don't care about Scrum, I don't care about Lean, I don't care what the teams use as long as they use an Agile approach. And that means you need program level measures. Now, the first measure is a demo of working product, right? That's always your best measure. And I like to say, how often can you see a demo? Can you see it every day? And if you deliver internally at least once a day, you can create demos for every single day. Now, I'm not saying that the teams should show those demos. In fact, that might be either a job for the software program manager, or somebody else in the program, in the software program team. However, you might want to also measure cycle time for demos, right? How long is it between demos? If it starts to be longer than a day or two, if it starts to be a week or two, your program isn't trouble. So you might need to do something about that. The longer it takes for a demo to occur, the longer it takes for you to see what's going on. So I really like to say, in terms of progress measures, never do anything with velocity. Instead, look at this feature burnup chart. So the red line here is features complete, right? Are we finishing features? Not the velocity, but are we finishing the demoable features on a regular basis? And what's happening with our total of features? I often find that the total number of features changes during the entire program, which means our burn down of the features remaining will mimic that line just on the other side. And then there's the product backlog burnup chart. If you really need to do capitalization, this is the way to do it. So I have 3 feature sets here. FS is feature set, and there are interim dates or iterations. So as the teams start, they realize they finish a little bit, maybe is that 20%, 15% in feature set 1 and nothing in feature set 2. They have not even started feature set 3. By the second iteration, they've done a little bit more in feature set 1, still nothing on feature set 2. By the third iteration, they look like they're maybe halfway done with feature set 1, and they're maybe 15 or 20% on feature set 2. On feature set, at the fourth iteration, they look like they're getting closer, but notice this whole box size has increased. So feature set 1 has grown. Expect this, especially on a program. Feature set 2 has also grown. So even though they've done a little bit more, it doesn't look like they've made a whole lot of progress. And by this fifth iteration, they have not done any more in feature set 1, but feature set 1 has decreased in size. And they've done a whole lot more in feature set 2. When teams are autonomous, they can choose to work together off of one feature set backlog, right? So if you decide as a program product owner or as a program manager that feature set 2 was much more important than feature set 1, you can increase the number of teams on feature set 2. It totally works. So there's all kinds of stuff about what you can do with program management for scaling, but when you scale is autonomy and agile and lean principles. So the more often you release, the more often you can see progress and invite collaboration across the organization. That's that whole delivery idea. The more you can trust the teams to do their work, the more you encourage autonomy. And the more you can respect the teams to experiment and explore, the more they will deliver for you. It's really agile and lean principles all the way down. So I hope that we can stay in touch. I write a monthly newsletter called The Pragmatic Manager. I hope that you link with me on LinkedIn, and the book is over here. I'm going to stop the share and see what kinds of questions you have. Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
すいません。聞こえますでしょうか。
I can, yes.
あっちですか。僕こっちに向かって話す。素晴らしいキーノート、本当にありがとうございます。序盤の方にお話があった
Thank you.
スモールワールドネットワークで噂を使って情報を効果的に流すっていうところについて少し質問させてください。噂がすごい効果的に流れるというのはすごい納得したんですけれども、例えば噂っていうのは例えばゴシップのような人に話したくなるような情報っていう性質があるからこう流れるのかなとか、噂を流すような場があるから効果的に流れるのかなというふうに考えたんですけれども、何かそういった、効果的に情報を流すために何かこうデザインする方法っていうんですかね、効果的に流すために意図的にこうデザインするようなものっていうのは必要じゃないのかと思ったんですが、なんかそういったそういった工夫とか、された例とかあったらお聞きしたかったです。
Thank you. So I will try and speak slowly. Sorry if I speed up. Back when we were in person, we could have coffee with people or have lunch with people, and we could build a relationship that way. Now that we are remote, although I see several of you sitting in places with multiple people, it's more difficult. So if you have Slack or Teams or some other back channel, and you have, I'm gonna type back channel in the chat so that the interpreters can read that. A back channel is a way of having a conversation without having it to be in real time, right? So it's often text-based, and the more back channels you have, and the more informal networking you can do in any way, shape, or form, the more you can build your small world network, that informal network of communication. Did that help?
はい、わかりました。ありがとうございます。
はい、次の質問をお願いいいですか。大丈夫ですかね。はい、キーノートありがとうございました。ちょっと聞き逃したかもしれないんですけど、コアプログラムチームとソフトウェアプログラムチームの関係性というか、どういう組み立てなのかがちょっと理解できなかったので、その辺少し詳しく教えていただければ嬉しいです。
So the core program team works at the organizational level about the product and the strategy. And the software program team is all about delivering the product and the technical issues that people encounter while creating this product. So if you think about the core program team that has to manage the strategy, the other products, it's the organizational issues, and the software program team deals only with the software teams delivering this product. Does that help?
はい、ありがとうございます。では、プログラムチームのマネージャーとソフトウェアプログラムチームのマネージャーは別の人っていう扱いで合ってますでしょうか。
Yes, they are different, and they tend to work together on a regular basis because, of course, the technical issues affect how they're building, how the software people are building the product. All those technical issues might affect the kind of project you want to release, which affects the strategy.
ありがとうございました。
じゃあ質問、もう1件ぐらい取れるかなと思いますが、大丈夫ですかね。どうぞ。じゃあ、これ最後の質問します。
はい、大変面白い講演をありがとうございました。で、スモールワールドネットワークがすごく面白いなというふうに思ったんですが、そこで気になったのがその噂話が流れているかとか、うまく流れているかの指標っていうか、どのように管理したらいいのかなっていうのがすごく気になりました。
I don't try and measure the rumor mill. I tend to say, how can I make it safe for people to discuss their work? And if I can make it safe for people to discuss their work, I tend to make it safe for people to question things and to solve problems across the organization. So I tend to look for psychological safety, not necessarily measuring the rumor mill itself. And I don't have a good way to measure psychological safety either. I do have a way to measure satisfaction, and I often look for how can I help people be more satisfied with their work. Let me see if I can. I have a recent blog post about that, which of course is in English, so I'm not sure if you can read it. I'm searching now. Let me see. Okay, there. I'm putting that in the chat. I hope that I hope you can figure out how to get that to people.
あ、すいません。はい。ディスプレイ今持ってるんですが、ちょっとリンクをクリックしてもらってもいいですかね。ありがとうございます。
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's kind of a long article. Sorry. If any, I am happy to send it to the organizers later, or if I can figure out the Discord, I will put it into the Discord. How about that?
ありがとうございます。必ず目を通したいと思います。
Okay, we will do that.
ありがとうございました。
Okay, end of question. Okay, do you have the another slide deck? Could you continue, Johanna-san? Or
So I think I'm done. Is there
okay.
okay.
Okay, another if じゃあ、ごめんなさいね。日本語だったり英語だったり、通訳の方、本当ごめんなさい。日本語で。もう少しご質問取れると思いますので、ご質問あったら、ぜひ、オンラインの方、それからルーム BC の方、あったらもお話しいただけますね。どうぞ。
大変興味深いお話ありがとうございました。質問をさせてください。スモールワールドネットワークがとても興味深かったんですけれども、そのネットワークというのは機能すればとても有用なものだと思うんですが、逆にとても壊れやすいものなんじゃないかなって思うんですね。それを、壊れないように維持するための工夫みたいなものがあったらぜひ教えてほしいです。よろしくお願いします。
I believe you are correct. It is possible to break small world networks. However, there are several ways you can keep them going. The first is always to have a product purpose, right? And to share that purpose with everybody on the program so that everybody knows that they're headed in this direction for the benefit of the product. The second piece is to make sure that people have autonomy, right? So when teams have autonomy, they can create their own boards. They can manage their WIP, their work in progress. They can manage their technical practices. They can make decisions inside their team and with other teams across the organization. That level of autonomy allows them to create mastery so that typically a team, a cross-functional team, works on one or two feature sets or its own product, right? And that they bring that product understanding to the entire program. And because they understand the purpose of the program, this one deliverable that has business value that requires many teams to deliver that business value. And because they understand how to work as a team and with other teams, they build their mastery of actually how to network. Now, not everybody is really good at making these informal connections with other people. And I find that it's not a function of introversion or extroversion. It's more a function of how focused are people on their own little piece of the work. And that's why the product focus allows people to expand their understanding. They still focus on their piece of the work, but they understand more about the rest of the program. So when you build psychological safety into every team as its own team, and certainly in the software program team and in the core program team, that changes how safe people feel across the rest of the organization. And the more you keep a focus on the product itself, and the more you allow the teams to have autonomy for how they work, as long as the results are they deliver something into the code base every single day so you can demo on a regular basis, right? The more you talk about outcomes and results that you want, the more likely you are to have a successful informal network, which will help you with the successful program. Does that make sense?
ありがとうございます。続けてで質問で申し訳ないですが、1個聞かせていただきたいのは、日本においても心理的安全性というのは今すごく注目されていて、本が出てたりとか勉強している人も結構いるんですけれども、心理的安全性を知ってもらうために何かその勉強をしたりとか、研修をしたりとかそういうのをするもんなんでしょうか。それとももうそういうふうなプロダクト思考になっていく上で、自発的に心理的安全性が大事だから自分たちで勉強していこうっていう自然発生的になるものなんでしょうか。どちらなんでしょうか。
So in the US, there are several classes about psychological safety. I offer my leadership classes only in English about how to offer feedback and coaching and delegation and how to have one-on-ones so that the effect is to create psychological safety. So a lot of people in the US are also working on this problem. We have our work cultures are not always based in psychological safety, but the more we think about it, the more we practice, the better off we are.
ありがとうございます。Thank you。
すみません、運営、実行委員川口です。質問をさせていただいてもよろしいでしょうか。ですかね。はい、ジョハンナさんにはぜひ日本のことをあまり笑わないでいただきたいと思いながらこれから質問するんですけど、日本で今よく行われている議論で、会社のトップの人たち、それからマネジメント層が、現場のこと、物事を全然知らないと。特に IT のこと、ソフトウェアのこと、全然わからない人が経営をしているという問題が、非常に広範にあってですね、特に大きな企業ほどそういうことが、みんなそれが当たり前だと思って諦めているというのが、多くの日本の大企業での、一般的に大企業のトップの人をバカにしているわけではありません。責めているわけでもないんですけど、一般的には大体みんな諦めているというのが、共通認識というのがコミュニティでされている議論です。で、これ、アメリカではどういう状況なんでしょうか。アメリカの大企業のトップとかマネジメント、ジョハンナさんが想定されるようなプログラムマネージャーの方たち、現役のっていうのは、どれぐらいのリテラシーというか、現場のことが分かっているとか、IT ソフトウェアのことが分かっているとか、どれぐらいのレベルなんでしょうか。それからどうやってそういうレベルになったんでしょうか。ちょっとアメリカの事情を教えていただけると、日本の我々としてはこれからどうしていっていいかが分かりやすいと思うので、教えていただきたいと思います。
We have in large organizations, we have exactly the same problem, right? The senior level executives don't understand what it takes to deliver the products and the services. They just don't. And there's the disconnect that's worldwide, and I don't know how to address it except to say that the more the senior executives understand the products and services, and the more they choose the customers that they want to reach, the more likely they are to learn about the products and services and what it takes to create those products and services. We have exactly the same problem here. I don't have a good answer.
ありがとうございます。私、主に一つの答えは、ここに来ている、リージョナルスカムギャザリング特許に来ているような人たちが、もちろん十分なリテラシーと、それから十分に学ぶということを知っている人たちが、偉くなるっていうのが一番早い解決策じゃないかなと思っているので、皆さん、ぜひ偉くなっていただければというふうに勝手に思っております。はい。すみません。ぜひ、ジョハンナさんもぜひお手伝いいただければ。
I agree with you. Yes, I agree.
もう少し時間取れますので、もう少しご質問あれば、ぜひどうぞ。どうぞ。じゃあ、根本さん先かな。根本さんのが手が早かったんで、じゃあぜひ。
どうもありがとうございました。2つ質問があります。すごいベーシックな話で申し訳ないんですけど、プログラムマネージャーっていう言葉をずっと使われてて、それとプロジェクトというところの違いをどう使い分けているのかっていうのをちょっと、聞きたいなと思っています。もしよければ、プロダクト、プロジェクト、プログラムみたいなところのどう使い分けているみたいなところを教えていただきたいなと思います。一つ目です。
Okay, let me answer that first. So a product manager focuses on the life cycle of the product, itself. Which customers does this product serve? When do you want to solve which problems in this product for those customers, right? So a product lifecycle tends to start and have an S curve, and at some point there's an end of life to a product. That's the product manager nurtures the business value of the product over its lifetime. So that's a product manager. A project manager says we have some relatively small set of features to create a product, and we have a time in which to deliver that product. So the project manager focuses on all the activities that will make it possible to deliver a useful product to the ideal customers in that, somewhere in that time, right? So the project manager would choose a life cycle for the product, I should say for the effort, and would charter the project with the product manager, all that stuff. Because you might have, if you think about a product over time, you might have a product that you want to last for 10 years. So you might have 10 one-year projects, or you might have 6-month projects, and then have a time where you gather data from your customers and then do another project based on that data. So a project manager would help the team fulfill the promise of that product in each of those projects. I hope that made sense. And a program manager manages the entire effort for making sure that the organizational risks and the product risks and the technical risks all get managed, which is not a good way to say it. I guess I would say a program manager assesses all of the risks, the technical, the product, and the organization risks all together, and either removes obstacles or reduces those risks along with other people. Did that make sense?
ありがとうございます。だいぶすっきりしました。もう一つです。途中で、スモールワールドネットワークの話とかをされていたんですけど、小さな塊が、チーム固まって、もうちょっと大きいネットワークを作っていたんですけど、実際の、具体的な話として何人ぐらいまでいけそうとか、そういうのはありますか？もしあればお聞かせください。
So, yeah, so small world networks are fractal, which means there's not much of a limit, except a single person's network tends to be limited by Dunbar's number, which is roughly 150. I would say, so let me talk about the team first. I happen to like 5 or 6 person teams, right? Relatively small teams with a particular focus, because the team can really understand how each other works. They can come up with working agreements. They can focus and deliver. A small world network does not require the same delivery from all the people in the network. So you can have informal relationships, informal communications, informal networking. And because it's all informal, that allows your network to grow. So think about a fractal approach. I hope that translates, where you're not bound by boxy bounds, but by the number of people you can actually create relationships with.
わかりました。なんか個人的にはそのフラクタル、そうなんだろうなと思ったんですけど、現実世界だとやっぱり制限があるのかなと思って質問をしました。すいません、どうもありがとうございました。
You're welcome.
Well, thank you for great keynote. I've learned a lot of things. And sorry, I want to ask in Japanese. コンポーネントチームと、フィーチャーチームのお話をしていただいたと思うんですけれども、その一つのシステムを、複数のフィーチャーチームが変更するっていう状況を考えたときに、そのデリバリーがしやすい代わりに、その例えばアーキテクチャとか、共有のライブラリとか、そういったもののその大きな構造の一貫性を保つのがちょっと難しくなるんじゃないかなっていうふうに感じていまして、そのお話にあった中ではソフトウェアプログラムマネージャーというのがいたので、そこが責任を持つのかなとも思ったんですが、その具体的な何かストラテジーというか戦略があればぜひご教示いただければと思いました。
So architecture is one of those really big problems. And I would ask you in your projects now, how do you plan to evolve the architecture? I find that having the architecture in only one person's head is not very helpful because every single technical person on the program will make architectural decisions every single day. All the little decisions that people make about how to implement, those have architectural impacts. So you might have an architecture team composed of the architecture community of practice, right? And that anybody who's interested might be a part of the architecture team, which might pop up and pop down. Or the architecture team might do some exploring or wayfinding as they proceed. I'm much more a fan of having the teams have architects, either architecture input or architects on their teams, as opposed to having component teams. But I don't know what's right for your product, right? So my experience says that it's fine to have an architecture team that acts like a community of practice that explains what they're doing and what they're thinking. In fact, in the Agile and Lean program management book, what I said was, I like to start with a picture of the architecture, either on paper or on a whiteboard, on a virtual whiteboard, something that people can look at and see, but that you're not committed to until you actually have more features. So I'm much more a fan of either behavior-driven development or test-driven development, even at the architecture level, because it tells us how we're thinking about the design, right? We don't start with architecture first. I mean, we might have to start with a little bit of architecture first, but as little as possible. And then we go into, as we implement small features, what does that tell us about the architecture? How do we learn about the architecture? And then the program architect would socialize that architecture to all the teams. So I think that you and I might have different experience with architecture, and that's totally fine. I think it's useful to think about how little upfront planning can we do for architecture? How easy can we make it to iteratively plan and change the architecture as we proceed? Because we will learn something.
Okay, got it. Makes sense. Thanks.
メインホール側の今、質問の列はないので、オンラインの方、ルーム B、C、テラスの方で質問がなければ終わりにしたいと思いますが、大丈夫ですか？ちょっと30秒か1分ぐらい待ってみたいと思います。ホールの方でもう一つ質問が、手が上がりましたので、じゃあ、お願いします。これを最後の質問にしたいと思いますが、オンラインの方でどうしてもっていうのがあれば取りたいと思いますので、準備してください。
どうも貴重な講演ありがとうございました。細胞の永田です。よろしくお願いします。細かい質問なんですけど、最後の方でですね、バーンアップチャートの話でもって、他の、例えばベロシティは測らずに、どっちかというと、フローを見ていくというふうなのは分かったんですけれども、ここの部分でバーンアップチャートのところというのは、それぞれのチームのところにおいてのちょっと、理解がちょっとできなかったんですけど、リスクを見ていくような感じなんでしょうか。そこはちょっともう少し説明していただくとありがたいです。
So think about the feature burnup chart as we walk through the program, as we finish delivering some features, we can burn up the features that are completed. In addition, we will learn as we go. So the total number of features will change. In my experience, the total number of features we frequently add to the total number of features. And then every so often we subtract. So that the first line is the number of features we have completed. And then there's a total number of features, right? And the reason I really like to measure features and not velocity is, first, velocity is personal to a team. And velocity can change over time based on the complexity of what's in the code base. So let's assume one of the software teams is accustomed to working on one kind of a networking product. And then because they finished their work, they had a relatively steady velocity, they had a relatively steady cycle time because they understood the code, they understood the problems to solve. That part of the product is done. And now somebody asked that team to work on a different feature set, right? Not networking. Instead, maybe it's security. This is not part of their expertise. They will not have the same velocity. They will have to learn this area of the code, right? So what they understood before was helpful. They had more predictability, and now they are in a different area of the code. In addition, the number of features in that feature set goes up. So the burn-up chart is going to flatten out a little because they cannot finish features as fast as they did before. And the number of features probably grew before they started this, but the number of features might also stabilize. So velocity is not a predictor of future delivery. However, looking at the feature chart is a predictor of future delivery. If you add cycle time to that, as opposed to velocity, now you have a much better idea, especially if anything changes. So think very hard about what you want to measure. And I have found that looking at features, customers buy features, right? Which is why I measure features or stories. I don't measure velocity because customers don't buy velocity. And I might measure cycle time for a given team, or I said cycle time for demos over the entire program, because customers need to buy finished work, and cycle time tells us about how long it will take for about half of the work to finish, right? We can get more information from cycle time and much less information from velocity. So I hope that that helps.
大変よくわかりました。ありがとうございます。
川口さん、質問いいですか？テラスルームからなんですけど。
もちろんどうぞ。
すみません。一個だけ質問させてください。このプログラムマネージメントの考え方だったり、そのプラクティスを組織に導入したり浸透していくためには、現場だけじゃなく結構組織的なアプローチが必要になると思います。そういった中で、まずどういったところから始めていくべきなのかっていったところをお伺いしたいです。
That's a good question. So I think you should start with making sure you have a product focus so that people know the purpose of this product. And secondly, if you realize that this is something larger than one team can deliver, to explain to the people in charge of making decisions about which teams work on which kinds of efforts, that you need more people to work in parallel to solve the problems of this product, right? That you're not just asking for more people because you want more people, but because you need more people working in parallel, not necessarily to finish earlier, but to finish better. Did that make sense?
ありがとうございます。
はい、じゃあ、時間が参りましたので、質問はこれまでとさせていただきたいと思います。皆さん、たくさんのご質問ありがとうございました。それから、ジョハンナさん、一つ一つの質問に非常に示唆のある、なんていうんですかね、簡単に説明するというよりも皆さんに考えてもらうような。
Thank you all for having me. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.